we are going to take a look at group exercise 1, which is going to be creating Route 54 profile. So I'm going to go through and take a look at the document here, the manual, and we're just going to go step by step through the manual, and I'm going to flip back and forth between the manual and the actual design file as we go through it. So the first thing it has us do is to open up in the Data 3 folder the civil geometry. Okay, if I take a look at going into project-wise, as you can see, we've got civil geometry here. I've already got it checked out. I've got the file open, but this is one we're wanting underneath of Data 3 and our project. Your exercise examples may have a slight variation in the file structure. However, we will be working in these same data sets in all of our manuals underneath Data 3 for this particular section. Okay, so I'm going to open up that civil geometry file. And this is what we have when we come in. We have a View 1 default that's got our Route 54. And we've got some other things that we created in the last chapter in the horizontal geometry. And now we're going to take a look at creating the vertical geometry for this. So on Route 54, I'm just going to go by the manual again. So we've opened up the file. So then we're going to come in and take a look at the next step. The next step is to take a look at the coordinate system throughout this project, and probably on your projects that you're working on, you're going to want to go ahead and set up the coordinate system for your project. So coordinate system is located underneath reality modeling workflow, and it's the coordinate system tool. Okay, and it may already be set in this file since we set it last time we were in this file. If not, we're going to go down and choose the tool that allows us to select a geographic coordinate system, and we're going to come out and pick the CD Miller, which is located underneath the modified geographic coordinate systems, and click OK if that is not already done. So let's take a look and see if that's been done. Okay, we should have done it in the horizontal chapter, but we're going to take a look at it in here. So in the drop down, we've got reality modeling. We've got the coordinate system. And in this one, like I said, it was already set up to the CD Miller. And if it wasn't, then we would choose the From Library option and then go locate that one, CD Miller. Okay? And that's under that modified geographic coordinate systems. So we'll go ahead and say that that's all right. Take a look at the next thing that we want to do. We're going to slide down here. Step number 6 is to set the terrain model active. So J5P 3181, there's a terrain model named that, and we're going to set that as active. And then we're going to open the profile model for Route 54. So I think we can do both those steps at once here. So I'm going to go back into MicroStation. Here's the terrain model on the outside edge. We're just going to left click on it. Currently it is active, so I'm going to turn that off to not active, and then I'm going to turn that back on to active. So that second option in there is what allows us to set the ground as active. And when you set that ground as active, it creates a surface profile for that existing ground automatically for whatever roadway that you have selected. As you saw in this right window, Route 54 is currently open in here, but if I opened any one of these other profiles in there, you can see that we've got an existing ground that shows up. As soon as you turn that to not active, that existing ground goes away. So we want that set as active. Okay, then it also said to have Route 54 opened in our profile model, so all we have to do is come out here. This is Route 54. So we will select it, get the heads up tool. Second option in there is to open the profile model. And then we'll left click in the View 8. Now if you didn't have View 8 open down there, you just have to come down here to the bottom and open View 8 and left click in there. Okay, we use View 8 because it's usually set up well already for clicking into here and adding a profile. I've seen it to where we've used View 2 before, and a lot of times View 2, after you hit F6, View 2 gets set up to be a different view completely. And so View 8 is typically a good one to use for that. Okay, so we've got that next step. That was step 7. Step 8, when prompted to select a view, we picked View 8. So we did that portion of it. You can zoom in and out or pan around in that window, and you can see the way the profile model looks. And that's just going to be an existing ground right now. We're going to create a profile out of the Complex by VPI tool to start. And we're going to show you how to do this by creating a rough draft of that proposed profile that has the 3 VPIs. And then we're going to adjust that rough draft to match this dialog box down here. We're going to go ahead and set the curve length to 100, and we're not going to snap to anything that's out there. Okay, so let's try that. We've got 3 VPIs. If I scroll down through the list here, you can see this is kind of what we're going to create. So 1 VPI, 2, and then 3. Okay, that's kind of where we're headed with this. So we're going to go out and go back to MicroStation, and we're in this window, and it said we can zoom in and out with the roller, and we can also pan around in this view. Okay, you just want to make sure this view is active by left clicking on the banner. That'll make this view active. Okay, so the tools it wants us to use are going to be underneath the Open Roads Modeling tools. It's going to be under Geometry, and we're looking at vertical geometry in this case. Okay, and we've got a complex element that we're going to try to create. So we got complex geometry, and then it had us do profile complex by PI. Okay, the other option that it had in there for us was to set this curve length. I believe that's where it was curve length. Yes, curve length right here to 100. Okay, so our curve length is the first thing it asks for, so we'll do 100 and enter that in. Now we don't want to snap to anything in this window, so it might be best just to come down and turn AccuSnap off. So I've got all of our snaps here and docked at the bottom. So I'm just going to toggle off AccuSnap. And we're going to come out here and just give it 3 VPIs, just 3 left clicks out there on the screen. Okay. Once you get that third one in there, you can right click, and then you've got a profile created out there with a 100-foot vertical curve, which can all be modified. Okay, so if we take a look at the next step, we've got those in there, and it says now let's go out and modify it according to this chart. Okay. In this example, there's a note here that says for simplicity, a parabolic curve with an equivalent vertical axis centered on the vertical or VPI is usually used in roadway profile design. So that is typically what we use, is a parabolic curve. So our VPIs are located here, and we're going to use that chart to adjust the stationing and elevations or slopes, depending on what we're given, to match this profile. Okay, so our first station is 602, 59, 49. So what we can do is just come back in here, and we can go out and hit F4, and if we hover over, select that line and hover over it, we've got stations here. So we can click on that station, 602 plus 59.49, and we'll hit enter on that, and that will change that stationing to match what's in the book. Now elevation, we need to come down here and take a look at the elevation, 774.1. Okay, so we're going to come in and do 774.1 for our elevation. So we just click on the elevation, 774.1, and enter that in. And that gets our start station. So now that is set in there, and we don't have to worry about that location. Okay, next we have either we can do a back grade of 1.4%, or we can give it elevations. First thing I'm going to do is give it the station, and that's what I'm going to do from here out. I'm going to give it the stations, and then I'm going to come back and put in the rest of the information. So you can also see that this has an R2 after it. So there was a station equation somewhere after 602 and between 627, there's a station equation. So when we key that information in, we're going to have to put this R2 in our information box so that it knows to go to this station. So 627.0306 is our next one. So we got 627 plus 0306. Okay. 627 plus 03.06. And we're going to go ahead and put that R2 at the end of it. And we'll enter that in. If you hover over it, it should fill in that information for you. 627.0306 R2. You can see that it moved over. Okay. Our next one is 647.66. So you can write that down if you need to, so we can come back into it. 647 plus 66.54. Okay, so we're going to switch back over to MicroStation. We're going to come over and hover over that one, and we're going to type it in just like that. 647 plus 66.54 space R2. A lot of times if you don't put the R2 in there, it's going to go off the range 1 stationing, which may be nowhere near this R2 stationing. In this case for Route 54, it's only off by about a foot. So you might not even notice it, but you have to make sure that you put that R2 in there. Once we enter that in, you can double check it, and it is correct. Okay, then I'm going to come back out here and say 808.32 is my elevation. 808.32. So we're going to come down here and select the elevation for this one. 808.32, and that brings it down a little bit for us. And it should also match here this 1.4, which is what we have as our brat grade, 1.4. Now the ahead, we can go ahead and make that negative 3.55 if we want. Let's go ahead and give that a shot. Negative 3.55%. So I'm going to slide over here, and we'll select on the slope if we can get that. Hard to get on the slope when you've got that extra line in there. Very difficult. Okay, so we'll zoom in even closer. Oh, you know what? Look at that. That is a white. It is white there for us, which means what? It means that you cannot select that to edit that. But in order to select it, you have to come up to the other end of it, and where it's orange, you can select it there and then go modify it. So that's a good point to take a look at. If it's a white note, you are not able to edit that, but the underlying line that connects that is editable, and the only way to do it is get to the one end or the other where that arc has been created and go out and change it there. So now we've got negative 3.55. We can enter that in, and that drops it down for us. Okay, and we're going to go check that last station, see how close it is to what was in the book. 735.06 or 07. 735.07. So it's rounded up for us, and it matches what we have. Okay, so we've done these steps here with the chart above. Adjust the grade values or the elevations. The curve length, okay, that's something we have not done yet. It says using the chart above, adjust the curve length of the vertical curve defined in the profile that was placed in step 10. So in our dialog, we've got 1000 as the curve length. So we need to come back in here, take a look at that curve length that we have in there. A lot of times, especially with a small curve, you need to zoom in a little bit closer in order to see it. It will disappear eventually. See that? So we'll zoom in and we'll go ahead and collect that length, which is the top number. Right now we have 100, so we're going to give that 1,000 and enter that in. And that has created our profile to match what we have currently in our exercise. Okay. In here we can name it Route 54 proposed. You'll notice that in ORD you can have spaces and it can be as long of a name pretty much as you'd like. So in here we're going to name it Route 54 proposed, and we're going to set the profile as active. Okay, Route 54 proposed. So to do that, we're going to hover over it, select it, get the heads up tool, and the first option in there is your properties. That's where you go rename it. Okay, and it's got a feature definition and it's got a feature name, and so we're going to give it a feature name in here of Route 54 proposed. Okay. Then we're also going to go ahead and set it as active, so we can select on it and set it as active. Sometimes these profiles do come in as a white color. It's possible to change that. I'm not sure if the feature definition right now is set up to change that, but we will give it a shot here. It's actually still remaining white, even though it is given MoDOT baseline proposed. I believe that will be changed in the future, so you may not have this issue, but it will be a yellow line for you at that point. Okay, so that right there is the first part of the exercise, and you can run a report for that. Okay, so the report, come back out here, and to run a report all you have to do is select and get the heads up tool on that again, and the fourth tool in there is the profile report. So we'll choose that, and then you can take a look at that report and see if it was created pretty close or accurately according to the manual here. Okay, and it looks like it is right on where we have it there. As you can see, all the same numbers. Okay. The next video will discuss how to create this same portion of the exercise using Civil AccuDraw.